For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Shannon Derehove. Independent political analyst Aubrey Machiki shares his reflections on the 2014 general elections. In the 2009 general elections, the ANC's votes declined by 3.79%, while the DA's votes increased by 4.29%. How can the ruling party succeed in reversing the decline of the 2009 elections?
Well, it seems to me, when I listen to those who fall within the ANC support base, complaining about the ANC's performance, complaining about things such as the level of corruption, the perception that ANC leaders don't care about them, only care about themselves, perceptions and the reality of poor service delivery. It seems to me the ANC needs to do two things. It needs to re-establish a relationship of trust, and secondly, a relationship of confidence between itself and those within its support base. If it can do that, then it can be sure it won't fall below the 65.9% it garnered in the 2009 elections. If the levels of confidence and trust have fallen to such an extent that it can't maintain the 2009 level of performance, then you can see a slight decline, even if it does not go to what other commentators are predicting, that it will fall below 60%. Even if the fall, let's say, is about 0.5 percentage down, what will happen is then that fall or that decrease in support, no matter how slight, will establish a trend of the ANC losing support gradually over a period of time. And the only debate then that would be left is at what point does it lose power completely? I don't think we're there yet. As far as whether it will fall below 60%, I'm still holding my bets.
If the ANC isn't able to reverse the decline, do you believe the party could eventually lose power at some point in South Africa's future?
Oh no, I have no doubt that the ANC will lose power at some point. We can simply debate how long it will take. And in fact, history tells us that there is no ruling party that can be in power forever. We saw it in Mexico, where there was a time when people thought one party would be in power forever. We saw it in India, and we saw it in Japan too. But there does come a time when a party loses power, and it will definitely happen to the ANC.
You're of the opinion that the 2014 elections are not going to deliver a decisive shift in support for the ANC and the DA. Why do you say this?
Well, there's one thing I'm certain of about the 2014 election. The one party that is not going to lose support is the DA. The ANC, if it maintains the 2009 levels of support, it shall have done very well, given the pressure that it is under. Because the ANC will be attacked from two directions. It will be attacked by the Economic Freedom Front, who are going for the poor and the working class, or for those who have nothing to lose because they have nothing. And they sit quite firmly in the support base of the ANC. I think Ahang will try and go for that constituency, including the middle class. But I see them being less successful than the EFF in creating some bond between itself or themselves and those who are poor and those who are workers.
Is there hope for new entrants such as Ahang SA and the Economic Freedom Fighters?
Well, I'm talking 8 months or so before the election. Given what the variables look like at the moment, I think the only question we should debate is the number of seats either party will get. I have no doubt that the Economic Freedom Fighters and Ahang will have some representation in Parliament next year, bearing in mind that depending on the voter turnout, between 40 and 50,000 votes will give you a seat.
You mentioned that we cannot rule out the possibility that it is the voter turnout and not the election result that may be the most talked about statistic of the 2014 elections. Please elaborate on this statement.
Well, one of the things I've argued is that the worst thing that might happen to the ANC is the contraction of its support base. In other words, what might fall is not actual support, but the number of those who traditionally vote for the ANC who do not bother to turn up for the 2014 elections. Now, in a context where the opposition maximizes the turnout of its own supporters, that would impact on the election outcome. On the other hand, given the fact that this is going to be a historic election, a year in which we'll be celebrating 20 years of democracy, and given the fact that this is likely to be the fiercest election campaign we've seen since 1994, the levels of interest amongst voters may be so high that actually the question of a lower voter turnout is not going to materialize. Now, in that context then, the question will be, if you have a higher voter turnout, which party benefits the most? Is it the new parties or is it the DA and the ANC? Given the fact that about 1 million South Africans, if they all register and turn up, will be voting for the first time.
Finally, you believe that a decrease in voter turnout would raise questions about the confidence of citizens in the democratic project and the ANC. What do you mean by this, and why should South Africans be wary of such a situation?
Well, it would depend on how big the fall is in turnout. Anything from 5% and beyond would send a message to the ruling party about the confidence citizens have not only in the ruling party, but also in our democratic system. Now, if the turnout continues to shrink in successive elections, that would be the clearest indication that maybe the voter is not just losing support in the ruling party because they are not translating their vote from the ANC and transferring it to another party, but just simply staying away. So it will be the clearest message that, first of all, they are losing confidence in the ruling party, but more importantly, and more worryingly, that they're also losing confidence in the democratic system and what the democratic system has delivered and can deliver. Now, in that context, you can still have the ANC actually increasing its support in electoral terms, but doing so in the context of a falling voter turnout would suggest that it is ruling with less and less confidence. Now, given what is happening in the non-party political space, with what some of us refer to as the rebellion of the poor, that would impact directly on political behavior in the non-party political space.
Thank you for your time. That was political analyst Aubrey Machiki sharing his reflections on next year's general elections.